On February 16th of 1852, the H&C Studebaker Blacksmith Shop opened. They would eventually become Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company, which then joined the auto market in 1902 by introducing an electric car. Welcome back to the Shop Mini RC, everybody. I'm Ken, and today we're taking a look at these guys. These are the Snow Leopards. We got both. This is by UDIRC. You can see right there. And we've got both the brushed version and the brushless version. We're going to compare them. We're going to compare them to other trucks. We'll dive into them, tell you the goods and the bads, and we'll probably run them in some video. So let's dive into this stuff. So let's just take a look at these boxes real quick. You can see there's two different colors here, a yellow and a black. And it actually looks like there's a black and a blue and a black and a red. Interesting, interesting. All right, we also have some information on the sides here. And you can see the four-wheel steer. Again, that's only on the Pro version. And the brushless is only on the Pro version. Otherwise, it comes brushed. So the box for both of them is the same, even though one is a brushed. They just label them different, apparently. You can see here there's a Pro and then the non-Pro. But all of the packaging is basically for the Pro. So we're going to dive into it and see kind of what makes the Pro different from the non-Pro. Yeah, you can pause on any of these if you want to look at them more. But let's go ahead and just rip them open. Let's get it open, guys. All right, so this one's supposed to be the Pro. This one's supposed to be the non-Pro. One of the reasons I wanted to show these off is because there's a lot of interest in them. The price point on these guys is really low. You can definitely check out the link in the description below. We picked these up from MakerFire, so you can definitely snag one up from MakerFire or any other retailer, but MakerFire is awesome. They ship this stuff out really fast, and even though we ordered them late, we got them late, and so that's why we weren't one of the first, but MakerFire is really good about getting stuff out fast. So definitely a great retailer to snag up some of the stuff that you can't find elsewhere. Right, there's that transmitter. And there's the two trucks. Oh, it's got some protective on there. I like that. I like that. Oh, this black is not just black. It's like got a kind of a flake in it. Do you see the flake? Actually looks really good. Way better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be kind of some cheaper plastic, cheaper black plastic, but this actually looks pretty good. It's not just regular old black. It's painted on the inside of the Lexan here. So that's awesome. Then this yellow definitely looks pretty sharp. Looks pretty sharp. And it's the same thing. We got some protective covering on there. Is it just a straight yellow or does it have flake? No, this is just kind of a straight yellow. But I dig that as well. I like it. It really pops. Like the yellow really pops. I love the body panels on this thing. So freaking cool. Man, this looks so good. Also, all the body panel screws are hex hardware. So that's awesome. It's not, Phillips heads. A lot of times when you get these style trucks from overseas manufacturers, they use Phillips heads in a lot of places. So they try to get hex hardware into there to give you that hobby grade feel, but then they end up using like Phillips heads in the body panels and in places you wouldn't really want. But this guy looks like it's literally hex everywhere. Allen screws everywhere. There's not a single Phillips head on here so far that I see. Servo horn is. And then drive shafts, obviously. Oh, no, they're not. Almost always drive shafts are also Phillips. These are hex hardware. Frickin' sweet. All right, so it looks like our transmitters are going to be almost the exact same, if not the exact same. I think they are. They're going to be the same. So that's good. That means if you were to pick up the non-Pro version, the brushed version, which is this guy, you'll have the ability to throw four-wheel steer on there if you wanted to by getting another rear axle, and then your transmitter should probably be able to handle it. We'll look when we get inside and look at the electronics and verify that, but if the transmitters are the same, that means you'll have mixing, which is nice. You can see at the very top here, you've got mixing. You've got little plastic protective on here as well. Yeah. You can see both of them have that little mixing diagrams. I think those light up, so that'll be cool. Obviously, they come with our USB charger here and a little hex wrench, as well as some preload collars for the shocks. Those are going to help kind of preload stuff. Since these shocks do not have adjustable collars, you just snap a preload collar on there and get an additional little bit of preloaded spring to stiffen up the rear or front or whatever. We also come with some screwdrivers, so that's cool. Let's open this guy up. This is the one that came with the Pro. Kind of a lot of manual stuff in here. It's like we have some additional little manual sheets here. I don't know what these are for. Operating instructions for the speed controller and ESC. Okay. This one's for the LiPo battery. What is this guy here? Lots of little paperwork. The motor guide. So this is telling us all the information on our motor. You can go ahead and pause and look at that if you'd like. There's the transmitter paperwork. Kind of wish they would have just put this all into a book, but I get it because they probably are using, a different ESC and receiver. They'll put the shared information on the big sheet here, which is going to be probably your exploded diagram, and then the things that are different, like the brushless motor and stuff like that, they have the little addendums. So yeah, full exploded view in here, which is pretty awesome. All right. Cool, dig that. Should have all the part numbers too. Let's just check that. Yeah, there's all the part numbers. Yep. I dig it. What else we got? Safety instructions. And then my favorite, besides tools. Oh, it's an actual hex. What? Okay, so that's cool. I thought these were just, for some reason, I'm so used to seeing Phillips heads come with the lower end RCs. Yeah. They're stepping it up. Definitely not lower end. Look at this. They're giving you actual drivers with hex heads. That's freaking awesome. And then, again, my favorite part, slaps, stickers. Yes, kind of in here tight, but let's see. There we go. Look at that. Okay, a whole bunch of different stuff. So let's see if this one comes with the same stickers. I bet you it does. My guess is they're the exact same stickers. But it's cool because you can choose how you put them on, which livery you run. Do you run the blue? Do you run the red? Pretty awesome. I'm excited for these because I think these are going to be a great platform for somebody looking for kind of an entry level that want this style of buggy Ultra 4 type truck. I think this is going to be a great step into that. Hopefully we see some aftermarket support. Awesome. Yeah, so the sticker sheets are all the same. Let's start looking at these trucks closer. So let's just kind of look at the bodies up close here. Looks like we do have some LEDs, so that's awesome. It looks like there's also some lights in the rear here. We'll check those out when we light these guys up. The detail on the interior, it's not crazy, but there's an interior, right? That's pretty awesome. I mean, the detail on the helmets is awesome. But the interior portion here is just Lexan, so nothing crazy, but still, at least there's an interior. I love that there's these fans in the back. They both have some awesome fans. Again, the body is pretty much going to be the same on both these, just whether you get the yellow or the black. There's a nice fuel cell there. This is also where the battery goes, if I'm correct. There we go. Okay, nice. Looks like we got some UDIRC batteries here. Oh, this is kind of cool. I like that they did this. The battery, actually, the plug runs straight off of the balance cable, so it reduces the amount of cables you have. You're able to just plug this guy straight in to the truck and charge it up, no problem. With a single lead as well. So you don't have to worry about a balance cable. Now that does mean you're going to have some issues if you try to use your hobby grade charger. A hobby grade charger generally won't let you charge off strictly the balance lead. You also need a full charge lead, positive and a negative, but there are ways to make adapters. Maybe we'll show you kind of what we use, but there are definitely adapters out there that you can already get to be able to plug this in, and it plugs into both your balance and your regular charge lead. Otherwise, you can just use the USB that's included. So I'm definitely digging that. I like this style. This is what we use on Mini Z. We use these on Mini Z. Not this shape. This is like an UCX24 shaped battery, but it's 350 milliamps, so that's nice. 2S. And does that have a C rating? I don't see a C rating. Discharge. That's okay. My guess is it's probably like a 30C is my guess. C ratings are usually kind of subjective anyway. A lot of the manufacturers just kind of slap C ratings on there, but UDIRC you know, they've been doing stuff for a while. They did send out the brushed one to us. We snagged up, like I said, the other guy from MakerFire, but you know, they've been doing stuff for a while, and I think this is kind of their first real serious attempt at a smaller scale off-road truck. So I'm excited to kind of see how this guy performs. They are locked diffs. We're still going over the body. I don't know why I keep jumping around. Sorry, guys. But the body, like I said, nice panels here. Full tube cage, right? The whole cage is tubed. You can remove all these panels and still have like an awesome looking tube cage under there. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull one of these panels off. At least we're going to lift it up a little and see what's under there. So there you go. That's what it looks like without the side panels or this piece here and the roof. It's got some actual tube framework in there. Pretty awesome. You can always make your own panels as well. I'm glad that we got this black one from MakerFire. We almost weren't able to get the black one. We were going to have to get another yellow one, but it wasn't going to be the Pro, you know, but it was going to be yellow. But I was able to get the black one, so that's awesome. And I'm glad because I was able to show you, again, these panels. It's hard to see. Maybe you'll see it out in the light. Oh, there you go. See, it's got like a really nice flake in there. So I'm definitely digging that. I'm going to take the hood off here too, just because I want you to see what's underneath that as far as the chassis is concerned, because a lot of people are attracted to these because of the chassis style, right? Like it's this tube frame, tube chassis style, kind of like the FCX24 Lemur. I think this looks a little better. It's got a better design overall. It doesn't look quite as goofy. The Lemur's kind of there's something just goofy about it. You got to lower that guy to make it look really good and really cool. And we'll compare that again later. We'll show you the Lemur later, along with a bunch of other stuff just to compare size and yeah, so you can get a feel for it. That also helps us get our plastic. The plastic protectant is kind of stuck under some of the screws. So, all right. There you go. So a very cool looking truck, whether you have the panels off, obviously you don't want them all off, but you know, you could have this rear panel piece off or just the top off or whatever, make whatever kind of panels you want. If you really wanted to maybe have some reach all the way to the front here and do some pseudo fenders, you could do some really cool stuff with caged trucks. So I dig that. But they look good, panels on or off. It's freaking awesome. And the quality of the plastic seems pretty good. It's got a little bit of flex to it. See that? Which is usually a good thing. You don't want them too stiff and brittle because then stuff just breaks, but they feel like they're a decent plastic here for sure. I'm not feeling like too much flex. You don't want too much flex because then you can kind of see we got a little bit going on there, but I think that's totally acceptable. If it were more than that, I'd start to get worried, but this feels really good. So what's the rear feel like here? Oh yeah, plenty. Whoa, hold on, I just realized, I think our battery is different. The battery that came in the Pro looks like it's slightly different than the battery that came in the non-Pro. I mean, they're both 350, 2.59 watt hours, so they're probably the same thing, just different branding. But that's interesting. It's funny, the red one came with the yellow, and the yellow one came with the black. Like, they kind of should have gone this way. I don't know. They're going to be the same underneath, though. What does this look like? It would look like we have kind of like a similar, so it looks like a 2-in-1 combo in there. Okay. So you've got a little Outrunner. Looks a lot like the FearTech Venom. Actually, or there's the FMS. There's the FMS. Is this the same as that? The Monocleus. So this guy comes with a 3500 kV 1212. It's called the Monocleus. Monoclonius. Yeah, Monoclonius. That's what the motor says as well, so that's cool. So it is a 2-in-1 on both the brushless and the brushed. So you have to keep that in mind. I almost wonder if they're the same, and this guy is just able to run both brushed and brushless. That would be interesting, because then you could throw a brushless in this guy, running it off of a stock ESC. I'm not sure, though. We'll have to open it up and look. See how oh no, yeah, I can see it already. You can see the plug right there, that red plug in there. Well, the red slot with the white plug. And you've got your 3 motor wires, and this guy looks like it's only wide enough, and it's a white slot. It's only wide enough for 2 wires in there. So I'm guessing they are going to be different. They look very similar, other than that. But yeah, if this only has 2 wires versus 3, you're only going to be able to run brushed off this ESC, unfortunately. But again, if you want the Pro, go with the Pro. You get the rear steer as well. I mean, I think they're both going to be good options for different reasons. Something pretty interesting I noticed here on the brushed version, there is a servo mount here, but these straight axles have no way of converting them to front axles. These rear axles are they're straight only. So I don't know why you would ever have a servo mount on there. It'd be different if you could like pull off the ends here and then put on some C-hubs, right? If the C-hubs were removable or clockable, but they're not. It's a solid piece. So I'm not sure why we get this extra servo mount. I mean, you could do like a winch, which would be interesting, but it would be kind of coming out the side. I don't know. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below, what this is for. What do you think this is for? Put it down in the comments, guys. We are running a 3-link setup, so 1, 2, and then a Y-link. We call that a 3-link typically. You do usually get some decent articulation out of that. It's just fine. People have different reasons for wanting to go 4-link. Sometimes it's to make sure you have plenty of space for your drive shaft under full compression, or just the way they want their truck to articulate in the geometries and whatnot. Some people think you get more suspension travel out of a 4-link, but I think it's kind of negligible. So 3 links are just fine. Again, as long as you're not rubbing or colliding, your links aren't colliding, your drive shaft's not colliding, should be good. They feel like they're non-oil filled shocks, so just regular friction dampened shocks. We'll measure the lengths of them and stuff. We'll tell you what those are about later. And we're just doing kind of an overview here. And the transmissions are 2 speeds? 2 speeds. I see a servo in there. So it's a 2-speed transmission. Oh, yeah, there it is. You can see the servo horn. 2-speed transmission. That's going to be super fun. What's interesting? This servo horn has a Phillips head, but the servo horn on the front is a Hex. Yeah, Hex is on front and rear servo, but then Phillips in there. Interesting. Your on and off switch. It's going to be in the same spot on both. Yeah, same spot on both. So overall, very similar trucks. Again, I think the only difference really is going to be our ESC, because it's brushed or brushless, and then our motor, brushed or brushless, obviously. And then the rear steer axle, so you'll be able to utilize the mixing on our transmitter here. Other than that, though, I think they're going to be very, very similar as far as performance when it comes to like suspension geometry and weight. And we will weigh them out, see if they weigh different. I bet there's a little bit of difference, but probably not much, if at all. We'll see. Do have some pretty cool looking wheels here. I dig that. They are, oh, it looks like they're glue-on. I think these are glue-on wheels. Not a fan of that. I do kind of wish they were real bead locks versus glue-ons. I don't think there's any foam in there, though. They are vented, so that's good. Nice and vented. Tires feel a little stiff. The compound feels a little stiff, but again, it just kind of is going to depend on your terrain. I mention it all the time. Tires are a hard thing to review as good or bad, just because everybody's terrain and location is going to be different. The humidity, the heat, the type of rocks you're running on, how heavy your rig is, all that stuff really plays into whether your tires work really well for you or not. They feel like they've got some grip to them, though. I can feel it. That's a pretty simple tread pattern. Feels decent. I just wish they were maybe a little softer for where we are. But again, they don't feel too bad. You can kind of hear it and see it. Like they're not horrible, but they're definitely not like a sticky compound. But that's fine. They're RTRs. We usually change out the wheels and tires anyway. I just wish that more companies would give us actual bead locks, even if they're plastic, because sometimes people want to run really light wheels because they want to reduce their rotating mass, which is generally a good idea. So they want to run light wheels, and having more plastic, awesome looking wheels. Like again, these are pretty good looking wheels. Just wish you were able to unscrew and get these tires off here and put new tires on if you wanted to. Or even if you like these tires and wanted to throw them on some upgraded heavier wheels, and you want to put weight in your wheels and have some aluminums, and you wanted to run these stock tires because they were working well for you, you'd be able to. You might still be able to get the tires off here. Oh wait, what? Are they not glued? I thought it was glued. Oh, they are. They're sort of glued. We may have to go back through and re-glue this guy. The outside was like not glued at all. It literally just kind of pulled off. Oh, yeah. All right, so just keep that in mind. Maybe we can pull these tires off and throw them on another set of wheels. I don't know. We're gonna run them like this for now, though. So we'll get a little dab of glue in there and kind of make sure our tires are good all the way around. Yeah, bead locks are nice just because you can reuse stuff. You can swap things around, and you don't have to glue it. Let's go ahead and plug these guys in. Get them powered on. So as far as the battery compartment's concerned, you can kind of slide underneath here, and then your plug should fit nicely right up at the top here. You might have to kind of fold your wires over or something. Let's see. What if we went this way? There you go. Just tuck that battery down in there. No. This way is going to be better. There you go. Then it just tucks down in. And you could even have the wire come across here if you're doing something like this. As long as you can get the wires tucked down in the back, you're good to go. And then your cover sits on top, so it's not like you have to slide it in or anything. Just kind of put these two little tabs into the fans, and then that guy will just drop down on there. Okay. That battery definitely pushes down in pretty far. And then you're able to just tuck your wires down. Our transmitters here, they use AAAs, so you've got 4 AAAs in there. And the power is going to be right here. Let's go ahead and turn them both on, then we'll figure out which one goes to which. We need to get these guys stickered up so we know. All right, this guy goes here. For some reason, this guy is not bound up yet. Let's try turning everything off. Maybe because we turned both trucks on at the same time. Turn on our transmitter, turn on our truck. There's no bind button on here, so maybe we need to turn off this truck. There's no bind button on the receiver in there. I don't know what's going on here. All right, we got it figured out. So I'm going to show you how to bind this, because what the manual says, which is just to basically turn on the remote and then turn on the truck, is not correct. So if you want to bind it, you can see right now we are currently bound to the brushless truck. I'm going to go ahead and bind it to the brush truck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this guy off. We'll turn off the transmitter. Then we're going to go ahead and hold your channel 3. This is a channel 3 here, and we'll go over what this stuff is as well once we get this bound up. Hold your channel 3 and then turn on your remote. Then let go of channel 3, then turn on your truck. And you're bound, okay? And no, it will not bind to both vehicles. So if I turn this guy on, it is not bound to this guy. However, I can then hold channel 3, turn on the transmitter, and we should bind. Maybe not. Maybe we have to restart the truck. Turn it off. Turn it on. Yeah, and now we're bound. All right, so transmitter first, then the truck, and then you're good to go. All right, let's go ahead and go over the transmitter. It's a pretty cool transmitter. I wish it had a little bit more weight to it. It feels kind of light. Like I said, it runs on AAAs, 4 AAAs. If it had a little bit more weight, it'd feel maybe a little more quality. But overall, the feel of the transmitter is pretty good. You can one-handed drive it or one-handed steer, you know. Unless you have really small hands, you should have no problem there. Let's go ahead and go over all the different modes and tuning functions here and channels. So let's go ahead and start with channel 1. Channel 1 is our steering, obviously, right? Channel 2 is going to be our throttle. And this is set up with forward reverse, not forward brake reverse. Then we have channel 3, which is going to be our lights. Okay. And then channel 4 is a 3 position. So you have low gear, neutral, and then high gear. And this guy looks like it's going to rip. Ooh, a little bit of cogging. All right, we'll look at that closer. It does feel like there's a little bit of a delay, just the tiniest delay in the transmitter. Just a little bit, nothing crazy. But again, this is an RTR transmitter. Now, one thing that's really cool about this transmitter is the rear steer function. And so I'll go ahead and show you that here. That's your modes. You can click mode, and now you've got rear steer. If I click mode again, you're going to have mirrored steer. And if I click mode one more time, you're going to have crab walk. So super cool that you got that functionality right there, so you can drive it around and easily switch through modes. I did just notice that our steering dual rate is turned way down. So first thing you're going to want to do when you get this guy is probably turn up your dual rate. So you can just, I'll show you. We'll go ahead and turn. You can just turn this knob here and you get a lot more steering. Now the dual rate is for both front and rear. Okay. One nice thing though is that we have a separate front steering trim and rear steering trim. So we can trim our front separate from our rear, which is freaking awesome. And then we have a throttle trim. We also have steering reverse right here. You can just flip that guy and your steering will be reversed. And then same with throttle reverse right there if you need to reverse your throttle for some reason. Okay. So again, channel 3 is your lights. Channel 4 right here is going to switch between low gear, neutral, and high gear. Man, that high gear rips, man. How is that on here? Let's see it on the brushed guy here. So neutral, go low, and high. Oh man, that guy rips too. One thing I did notice just here, just now, just that right there, not a lot of drag brake. So in high gear, you're definitely going to be rolling down a hill. Like, let's see if low gear gives us a little bit more. Low gear definitely gives us more drag brake, so that's good. Still not a ton though. See how the drag brake feels on this guy. Well, that's neutral. That won't work. Oh, way better. Drag brake on low is like way better. You have to really kind of push on it. In high, oh, no drag brake in high basically. The gearing is so high that it just kind of rolls. All right, well, good to know. Looks like it's got some decent slow crawl. Ooh, it's got a little bit of transition cogging, it seems like. Right there. Yeah, you can see it right there, starts cogging. Interesting. It almost feels like this guy is geared too high, like the pinion and the spur is too high. It's got plenty of wheel speed. Again, we'll show it. That's low. That's pretty fast for low. It can almost jump, right? And then high gear is just going to be bonkers. Oh, whoa. That was interesting. It's got way less torque, but it definitely is faster. We'll do some speed tests. We'll do some side-by-side. Oh, see that? Yeah, I think the pinion gear is going to be too big on this guy. Need a smaller pinion. Look at that. It cogs when you barely... I'm not even... I mean, I'm barely touching it, guys. Anyway, we'll have to mess with that some. Let's see how that brush does real quick. We'll do some obstacles, and obviously we're going to go drive them a little bit. Actually, the brushed feels better, oddly enough, as far as... it's still got that brushed feel to it, where you got to like give it more throttle. But even this guy would probably benefit... Oh, yeah. Benefit from a smaller pinion, larger spur, because it's got some go fast for sure. For a crawler, definitely need more torque. That's in high again. Let's try low here. Definitely better in low, obviously, and definitely better. It feels like in the brushed. Yeah, see that brush? Let's put that. Oh, we're in high. That's why. Let's go to low. Try again. It's pretty smooth. That's pretty, I mean, compared to the brushed. So brushless is so much more granular and smooth, generally speaking. Now, again, there is some cogging, so I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but yeah. Gear it down a little, gear it down a little. Let's go ahead and, do we open it up next or do we go drive it? I think we're going to open it up next. All right, let's go ahead and pull a wheel off here just because I always like to kind of check that out. So that's going to be our typical 7mm hex here. Man, that axle shaft is beefy. You can tell just by how thin the walls are for this. You know, the hole in the center is huge because that axle shaft is huge. Let's go ahead and get some measurements here on these tires. Looks like they're right at 54.5, 55 millimeters by 21 and a half. And then they're obviously 1-inch tires or wheels, whatever. Okay. Again, our hex here is going to be 7mm. The axle pin looks like it's going to be right at 1.3. Yeah, 1.3 millimeter axle pin. The axle shaft is 4 millimeters. It is bearings, so that's cool. Dig that. Just means if you decide to go through water, make sure you oil them up and clean them and do all that stuff that you should do when you get bearings wet. We're going to use a 1.5 millimeter here, and we're going to open up this. Let's see what we got here. All right, let's go ahead and pull this guy off. Just make sure you don't lose your little bushings here. There's bushings in your C-hub. Now the plastic on this guy, like I said, seems pretty good. This front steering link, though, is really, really sloppy. And I also noticed that when you combine this really flimsy steering link with this servo saver, the steering is very squishy. So I almost wonder if we can just tighten the servo saver down some. I don't want to strip anything out, but tighten that down just a little bit. And then I think if you got a better steering link here, you'd be fine. Your drag link's not too bad, but this steering link is flimsy for sure. Let's go ahead and see if we can get our knuckle out here. Here we go. There's our axle. It's a pretty beefy axle shaft. CVD style. Got some pretty good steering angle there. Looks like our axle shaft key is almost 2 millimeter. The shaft itself is 3. Little hub here, 7 millimeters. Oh, yeah, pretty beefy. One of these little guys. But yeah, look at this thing. It's so flimsy. Like, that is wild. Definitely makes the steering feel squishy, like I said. But I think we'll be fine if we tighten this up a little bit. Maybe tighten up our, see, even here, I can see the servo saver kind of popping up when I force it quickly. Let's see if we tighten this down. Maybe it won't do that. And it's still kind of popping up a little. Worst case, you could always shim underneath the spring. So basically pull the screw out and add some washers in between the screw and the spring, and it'll push the spring tighter up against that and give you less squishiness in there. You can see it. I'm going to take it apart right now. My worry with just continuing to tighten it down would be that we'd push into the servo. I don't know if this is a plastic servo end here or what. I don't want to damage the servo itself. Okay, so it's a metal horn or metal gear, so that's good. Wonder how much of the gears inside are metal. Yeah, all right. So yeah, it looks like to tighten this guy up, you're probably, yeah, I don't want it to go too deep into the servo, but you're probably going to need to add a washer. So again, you can just add like a little bit of spacer in there. Anything even. Probably just take like something like this, like a larger nut, right? And put it on in between. Actually, is this gonna, oh, that nut fits on here, perfect. Nut or washer, whatever. Or spacer. If you've got like a shock spacer, you have to have a big enough one, but do something like that. So you've got more preload on that spring, and then put your spring back, or your, yeah. So let's make sure we're centered. Seems a little better. And if you really want to get rid of it, just get a new servo horn. Or you can glue the servo horn to the servo saver portion, and that'll help. But this seems a little bit better there. Seems like a pretty good servo, too. Like, that servo's got some torque. It's just that servo saver that's really kind of holding it back. It feels like when it starts to get hot, maybe it's going to start losing some power. But still seems okay. I think I'm going to actually open up these shocks real quick, at least one of them, just to see what's inside. For all we know, there's some O-rings in there, and we could oil fill them. So let's see real quick what's going on in there. And these are an easy thing to replace. So that'll be nice. If you need to replace them, should be super simple. The length of the shock, eye to eye, is going to be right at, looks like 40, probably 41 is going to be our more accurate here. Yeah, 41 millimeters. And then we're using M2 hardware. So TRX4M shocks not going to work because they are 2.5 M25. So you just have to, make some bushings in there to kind of like a sleeve, or get, I probably wouldn't go with a larger screw here. You'd have an issue, but any M2 hardware shocks would work here. So we're basically looking at like Red Cat Ascent 18 shocks, or FCX24 and 18 shocks, FCX24, FCX18. Those use M2 hardware, so that would be good. Plus there's a lot of different shock length options. Oh, these are oil filled. Well, they don't feel very oil filled, that's for sure. I think they need some thicker oil. Yeah, you definitely need some thicker oil in here. Let's go ahead and open this all the way up then. We'll take a look. See what the insides look like here. Do we have a bladder? Yeah, there's a rubber bladder in there. So that's good. It almost feels like the bladder's upside down. Like dips in. Usually it kind of is convex versus being concave coming out of there. Let's go ahead and unscrew here. I'm gonna have to use some shock pliers. Shock pliers are nice. They let you grab onto like the shock shaft and whatnot without having to worry about damaging it. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to be working with RCs quite a lot, get some nice shock pliers. They're made out of aluminum, so they don't damage the shaft or the other parts of the shock if you use it on the housing or whatever. It's a softer metal, so you don't have to worry about them getting damaged. Let's go pull this cap off first, actually. You want to release any pressure from O-rings before you push the shock shaft all the way through. Look at that. We actually have some O-rings. A dark O-ring and then a light O-ring. Is there a third O-ring in there? Maybe. Sometimes they'll do like a O-ring, a washer, and then another O-ring. It looks like, oh, there is a third O-ring in there. Look at that. So a dark and 2 clear O-rings. Yeah, I think they just need thicker oil, because that's a pretty big hole in the valve there. It's just like a C-clip, basically. All right, well, and then what is that, like a preload? Yeah, a little preload collar there, or a holding collar, a spring retainer. Well, there you have it. So they are oil filled. Color me surprised. They just don't really feel oil filled. I think like I said, just some thought. Thicker oil will help for sure. So when you're putting your shocks together, like I said earlier, make sure you are careful when you move your O-ring over your shock shaft, the threaded portion, and you always want to remove the cap. You don't want to like just put the O-rings in there. It's called your seal stack, and then put your cap on and then slide your shaft through. Because when you slide your shaft through, the O-rings that are inside with the cap on top of it, you will probably damage your O-rings. So definitely make sure you, well, where did our other O-ring? There it is. Make sure you put the O-rings over before you put the shaft through and the cap on. Well, this actually is a bushing, like a rubber. It's not an O-ring, it's a spacer. I almost feel like you want, most of the time I see O-ring, spacer, O-ring. I think we're going to do that. And we'll do the other shock that way as well. So O-ring, washer, and then O-ring. That's how we're going to put it together, because I feel like that's a better way to prevent leakage, and it helps kind of stabilize the shock shaft. So we'll put our seal stack in there, and then we'll go ahead and put our cap on. Now, just be aware, depending on how the shocks and the shock housings are, sometimes if you over tighten your little end cap here, it can create binding because the O-rings will push too much onto the shock shaft. This one feels like we're probably fine, which means there's enough room in there. It's a very fine balance between being too tight and not tight enough, and then you leak. But that feels pretty smooth, actually. All right. Let's go ahead and get our spring back on. And our link end. That's super smooth. Then we're going to fill it up. We're going to use some 200 or 20 weight, 195 CST. This is actually pretty thin. Let's go heavier. I just want to try something heavier. And we'll do the other shock as well, but this is some 60 weight, 800 CST. We're going to go ahead and fill this guy up right to the top. Make sure we work it in. No bubbles in there. Okay. We're going to compress it just a little bit and put our cap on. Kind of push the air out as we tighten our cap on. Seems better. A little more dampened, so that's good. Clean this guy off. All right, we'll get this one installed, do the other side, and then maybe we'll compare the bounciness. So while we're in here doing the other side, I do kind of wish there were multiple shock mounting positions. That would have been nice, both on the front and the rear, just to give us some options, even if it was just 2 more. Just because I like to have new people be able to have adjustability so they can kind of mess with it and learn and see what the different placements of their shocks do for articulation and control and things like that. So just, yeah, wish there was some more shock mounting positions just built in. Although I guess that would get kind of, depending on how big and intrusive they were, could make it ugly and less scale looking. This looks more proper. But yeah, I always like adjustability. Yeah, the shocks just didn't have enough oil in them. That's the main thing for sure. They barely had enough oil, just like enough to kind of dampen them, you know, lube them up, but really they needed more for sure. I think adding some of this heavier weight oil is going to really kind of dampen it up and make it less bouncy, which will be good. Huge difference in how it feels. This definitely feels bouncy. And this guy's a little bit more, a little smooth. So I highly recommend making sure you're fully filled with oil versus just having a little bit in there for lubrication. You definitely want to fill it up. You don't even have to go quite as heavy as I went. The 2195 CST is probably fine, but yeah. Definitely smoother. A little bit more buttery feeling. All right, to get this guy all apart, it's just going to be these 4 screws here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this whole centerpiece will come out. You are going to want to take your shocks off though, so you can pull one panel by pulling the 2 screws, and then you can fold this back. If you're worried about bending it, you can pull 2 more screws out, but I think you can do it with just these 2, no problem. Get a screwdriver in there, get your shock undone, front shock, other front shock, and your last rear shock. Super simple. Then this guy will come out. Now, just be aware, you're going to have stuff like your battery cable coming through here. Go ahead and pull this off. Battery cable coming through, and then our lights with a zip tie here. So we're going to have to nip this zip tie, unfortunately, to get this all the way off. Now, if you're just working on it, maybe you'll leave that just to make things easier for you. But our lights are also going to be in there. Let's see, are these glued in or did they just pop out? Let's see. Oh, no, they're pretty in there. So you're going to have to snip this zip tie as well and unplug your lights if you want to completely remove the body. Just be careful when you're doing that, not to nip your wires. And there we go. We'll be able to unplug our lights here and get this out of the way. That way we can take a good look at what's going on here. So there's our ESC. Looks like we have a full light controller on there. FLTB. Looks like just some positive. I don't know what those are for. I'm not sure. TRB, HR, and HL. So headlights, left, right, maybe. Not sure. Definitely brushless specific though. Obviously our 3 wires. And then we have our channel 1 front, channel 4, and channel 1 rear. And this guy is pretty much the same when it comes to channel 1 front and channel 1 rear. I don't know if you can see in there, but it's there and there's an open slot. So if you get another front axle with servo, you can plug it in. You'll be able to use that mixing, no problem. Okay, and you can see our lights are plugged in the same here. You're plugged into HL right up in there, and then FL for the backlight here. Channel 4 is our shift servo. So this guy here, pretty nice little setup how they've got the shift servo mounted. It's interesting. Then we have our motor and our motor mount. I do really like how centered the motor is. It's literally centered versus being offset, so that helps with weight and making sure things are balanced left to right. I'm going to go ahead and drop this guy out of the skid just so we can take a look. I don't think I'm going to open up the transmission though, but we'll go ahead and drop it out of here and get a better look and see if it's like one whole piece. I think it is. I think just these 4 screws will drop the whole transmission and shift servo out as a single piece. Yeah, and even the servo tray or the ESC tray is attached. That's interesting. So it looks like the shift servo and ESC tray mount is a single piece here. Yeah, and it mounts up right there. So those 2 bolts will drop that off and separate the transmission. And then the bottom of the transmission doesn't look like there's any screws holding it together. So it looks like the whole transmission housing is literally just these 2 screws. That's kind of wild. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's cool. That's definitely a novel transmission design. It's not copied from anybody else. It's not like it's an FCX transmission or any of the other 2-speeds that I know of. If you know of a transmission that looks the same as this, let me know down in the comments below. But I think this is unique to UDIRC, so that's cool for sure. It does mean that we're going to need some aftermarket support, hopefully, replacement gears if that happens. You know, we should open this up. I really didn't want to. We should see if there's metal gears and bearings in there. My guess is they are. Because the rest were. Guess we'll keep going. We're this far, right, guys? We're this far. Let's keep going. So we'll pull this drive shaft off. Drive shaft is a 1.3, by the way. Everything else is a 1.5. All right. Oh, man. Okay. It's dangerous in there. Two-speed transmissions always are kind of complicated. Let's see. What's the easiest way to get the shift servo linkage off? All right. Oh, man. We done did it now. That is a complex little transmission there, guys. Oof. It's all metal gears, though. All metal gears. Here's our pinion. Our output there. I assume it's on bearings. Of course, we opened it this way, and we'd have to pull out that. We also lost our gear here. Which way does this gear go? Oh, no. I think we go on here like so. Actually, I think it goes the other way. Alrighty. And yep, I can see right in there, we are on bearings. Let's get this guy off here real quick. Just to confirm for you what I do for you guys. Now, interestingly enough, this gear has like an axle shaft pin slot, but there was no, it just sits on there. There is no axle shaft pin. Is there? Hold on. Where's our output shaft? Oh, it's right here. Yeah, there's no pin there, so it just kind of floats on there. Probably doesn't need the pin. It's just because it's a 2-speed, right? So this guy slides in and out. Our shift fork in there, and our key. Worst case, you can always reference the exploded view diagram. Trying to get our key into our shift fork. There we go. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and get this guy back together. Hoping we can just drop it back in. Everything will match up nicely. If when you go to put it together, things aren't feeling like it's going smooth, you've got something wrong. So just keep that in mind. Should drop in, no problem. There we go. Our shift rod was getting caught, but now we're good. Everything feels engaged. Let's check this way. Nice. Hold on. There we go. Yep, we're good. All right, I'm gonna get her back together, get her back in there. Very cool piece though. It's pretty wild to me that this thing is put together with just the 2 screws, right? Like, that's pretty crazy. Although I guess the fact that the whole bottom is bolted in, and that kind of holds everything together with these 4 screws as well. So it's not really just 2 screws, right? There's more than that. It's definitely more secure than that, but still kind of crazy. Pretty neat. All right, let's see here. We need to flip this guy around. What am I doing? Why did I... You didn't tell me I was putting it on the drive shaft, guys. Jeez. Actually, this goes the other way. Put it through underneath. And then wrap it all the way through. There we go. And then into our servo horn. Ta-da! Easy peasy. And again, we can power everything up and just make sure that we're still good, which is something I like to do before you get too far into putting something together. Always kind of test things along the way. Make sure that everything's working as you would expect it. It's not the right transmitter. We need to get stickers on our transmitter. There we go. And shift. And we're good. You know, one thing that there is not is a trim and endpoints for dual rate for the shift servo. So if you end up having issues there, I'm not sure if there's a way to change that. You need to adjust your trim on your shift servo. So that's something else to keep in mind. If anybody does know of a way to set this into like a different programming mode, you know, sometimes you can turn the transmitter on, the wheel turned and full throttle, and when you turn it on, it changes it so that your dual rates and trims work for other channels. If anybody knows of that, let me know. It's not in their manual. So, but yeah, we're nice and good here. Now, this will let you put your transmission and stuff in either way. And you can't really tell with this one, at least, which one's the front and the rear. So just keep that in mind when you're taking things apart. Note what's the front and what's the rear. You can always check to see where your servo is running. So channel 1 front is this servo. Also, remember, we put that little wash or spacer in there. So this is our front motor towards the front. But yeah, just keep that in mind because you can mount it either way, which is kind of cool that it's, the skid doesn't really care which way you mount it. So if people wanted to get really crazy and do custom stuff, you can flip your transmission around and all kinds of stuff. So super cool in that regard. I know some guys out there might be curious about this, so I'm going to go ahead and measure the width of the skid plate on the chassis. It looks like we're right at 42 millimeters in width. These holes, center to center, are going to be right at like 30 millimeters. Maybe 31. Yeah, I'd call it 31 millimeters, center hole to center hole on those guys. Maybe 30 and a half. Either way, some people want to use skid plates on different bodies or bodies on different skid plates. And so, yeah. And again, everything's M2 hardware. So Red Cat and FCX hardware. So very cool. All right, we're all back together. Things seem good. We're going to go ahead and sticker this guy up. I don't know if we're going to sticker up the black one. We'll see. Maybe we'll do something different on that. I don't know right now, but I kind of like the way the yellow one looked on the box here with all this cool livery. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I wanted to point out on these stickers that there's like, when you peel them off, you have, they're like so, right? Like they peel off, but this is actually, it's a film on top of the sticker. So once you put the sticker down, you can peel the film off. You can kind of see on this guy, there's like it hangs over. And actually we trimmed it because I thought it was part of the sticker. And it hung over about this far down here as well, but it's not. So you can actually go in and you can peel up just carefully once you've laid the sticker down. And then go back, and this top portion comes right off. Okay. Like so. All right, and that'll get your sticker on there much better. Like I said, this off-road sticker here, we can peel this guy off. So we wanted to put it right here. Throw it on there. Rub it on nicely, and then peel off the top. Boom. Just like so. They're super thin stickers, so they don't they don't stack up and have a bunch of thickness on the body. They're very flush, which is awesome. So just a note about those stickers. And of course we need some of the Shop Mini RC stickers. I think we'll go ahead and do the do the black and white on this guy. So we'll go white with black. Boom. Something like so. And then we always put the same color sticker on our transmitter, just so we know which transmitter goes to which truck. We need to get some more sticker colors, I think, because we're starting to have transmitters that have the same color stickers on them with the same transmitter, because we have so many RTRs. But yeah, now we know which transmitter goes with which truck. Let's go. All right, let's go ahead and do some side-by-side comparisons of some other brands and other trucks, just so you can kind of see the size difference and just similarities and differences. All right, so I have a ton of different trucks we're going to compare, so we'll try to go through them fairly quickly. Here's the Lemur. This is probably the closest thing out from an RTR of this scale that's going to look similar. They're actually very different, though, as far as the chassis is concerned, or the tube chassis. You know, there's similarities, but here, let me bring this guy back over since we've got all the panels off. You can see, though, there's differences. The way the tube chassis is, this tube chassis is a lot more scale. It's got a lot more detail. You can see here, it's just kind of like a boxed off, whereas this, we've got actual full tubes going. And even in here, in the front, I mean, the front especially, this has got like an inner fender and just kind of boxed off front there, whereas this guy has got full tube work inside there. So again, it's a very different truck when you really look at it. Tubed front end, whereas this is just like a fender that's kind of bolted on the front. In my opinion, this truck looks way better. The Lemur looks cool when you start to change it up. Again, it sits kind of high naturally, so we stretched ours out, and it kind of gives it a more aggressive look. We also moved this light bar that came with it was on top. We moved it to the front. When it was on top, it just looked doofy and funky looking. The interior is actually might be the exact same interior, though. As I look at these guys, I think the interior is the exact same. I wouldn't be surprised if they came from a universal mold of some kind. But yeah, a couple other similarities, but overall pretty different. Even our B-pillar here, we've got a double B-pillar here versus a single. This is also lower, more aggressive looking. This guy's kind of tall. So yeah. But yeah, the FCX24, very similar in size. This guy's a little more narrow as far as our, well, we've got some high offsets on here. Let me get a Way Cool McHugh edition here. So you can see the portals are definitely making it a little bit wider. This is an FCX24. There's your wheelbase. And I consider this much more of a 18th scale, even though they call it the FCX24. They do that just because of the wheelbase length, but really the truck width and length is what you should be scaling on. But again, it's about the platforms. FCX24 and FCX18 are basically the same thing, just different length wheelbases. So here's like the LC80, right? So this truck, technically, it looks almost smaller when you get down to the width of the truck. It is more narrow here. So this truck is a smaller 18 scale, but it's got a longer wheelbase because of the proportions. Anyway, when you compare these guys, again, this is a totally stock rig. Our wheelbases are pretty, or our track width is pretty close. Again, they're on portals though, so totally different truck. It is a 2-speed still, so this and the Lemur, these guys are all, 2 speeds. But the 2-speed is very different. The transmission in these guys is it's kind of a side mount motor. I don't know if you can see in here. Also rear facing, right? Motor's coming out the back, rear facing. Whereas on these guys, the motor is completely centered and forward facing. Kind of like a TRX4M, right? So similar in that regard, but it's a 2-speed. So all these guys are 2 speeds. I guess that's the closest thing to similarity. But I just don't want people thinking it's a ripoff of some kind, because it's totally different truck. Next, we'll go to the FCX24M. Now, this is the short guy, the D90, so we're quite a bit smaller when it comes to wheelbase. Our track width is going to be a little wider on here, shorter on this guy. Again, this is a 24M. This is more of a true 24th scale, and they're calling this 24 scale. It's not too far off. Let's go look at an SCX24. The SCX24 is kind of the most common 24 scale, even though these guys are closer to 20th scale. But there we go. Big difference between these, again, 2-speed, not a 2-speed, ring and pinion, so you can just roll it, right? It's gonna be much higher speed. It's made to kind of go fast, whereas this guy is much more of a dedicated crawler. You can make them go fast, but they run on worm gear, so it's quite the different platform when it comes to torque and stuff. So this is going to have a lot more torque to the wheels, whereas this guy's going to have a ton more wheel speed. Again, this truck isn't really labeled as a rock crawler. It's more of a trail truck or a rock bouncer, rock basher, Ultra 4 high-speed truck, a lot less rock crawl. And I think that's part of why it's geared so high. Again, I think gearing it lower will help tons if you're trying to really rock crawl with it. But the UCX24 doesn't usually have that issue just because of the worm gears and the nature of it. They've got built-in drag brake because of the worm gears. It won't even roll if you try to push it because of the worm gears. So, but from a size standpoint, very similar, almost the same wheelbase. This guy's just a tad longer. Our track width, UCX24 is naturally a very narrow truck. So a lot of people widen them up, but it is what it is. Here's a Gladiator length, so you can see there. Okay. Got this guy. This is the Red Cat Ascent 18 and the Red Cat International Scout, the exact same underneath. The only difference is the chassis rails are a little longer on the Scout so they can mount the body. But as far as the actual wheelbase and all that stuff, exactly the same. And so you can see it's a little bit bigger here. They call it an 18 scale, which is pretty accurate, I think, for this truck. Here's the new CR18P Pro from Hobby Plus. Much longer, way wider track width. Much more aggressive looking truck, comp style truck, but it is a lot bigger if you look at the overall body size. Like pretty good sized body. Again, call it an 18 scale. On a similar platform as this guy, this is the Fury Wagon FX118. There's a couple different bodies, Jeep body, Bronco body, stuff like that, but or at least similar looking to a Jeep and a Bronco. But same underneath, FX118. It's also got Hobby Plus axles, so that track width is going to be very similar. Just with narrower hexes, so 18 scale as well. And then I guess we'll do this guy as our last. This is the HPI Venture 18, and it's on straight axles. It's also similar to the Hobby Plus and the FX118, just this guy's on straight axles versus portals. You know, if this guy was on portals, it probably would not have any of that cogging issue in the brushless, because it would be gearing down quite a bit. So maybe they should have considered portals for this. I'm glad it's on straight axles. Again, I think we just need to change the pinion on the brushless one. We'll do some running video here in a second, and you'll really be able to see kind of what's going on there. But much bigger truck. Again, 18 scale. We're calling this a 24 scale. All right, guys, I think that's plenty. You probably have a good, let's, hold on. We can do one more. We'll do a TRX4M. TRX4M. Again, 18 scale, so it's going to look a little bit bigger. Go ahead and do our track width. Almost the same track width. Interesting. Very cool. Okay, and I got one more. Arctos. Perfect. Boom. Let's go. This is what you need. And it fits perfect in there. Let's get our rail up. Even if you went with a little bit wider wheel or tire offset, you could still fit this guy in here just fine. Actually, with the rails tight, it's almost perfect. It is perfect. So, yeah, freaking awesome. That looks dope. That looks dope. All right. So I was scanning through the manual here, and I noticed that there is two different transmissions apparently. It's got the P080 central transmission brushed, and then a P085 central transmission assembly brushless. But when I look at the actual transmission, this is the P080. Both manuals show the P080. There doesn't show like a difference in gears. So I don't know if maybe it's just the motor. And when this part number P080 and these two here include the motor, maybe, and that's why they're different part numbers. So I kind of feel like that's probably the case, because again, there's no difference in any of the part numbers in any of the gears. But I was thinking maybe that has something to do with the little bit of cogging on the brushless. They geared it differently, but I don't know about that. Also, while in here, I noticed this. The P082 versus the P081. P081 is what it comes with, locked diff, and it looks like they offer an open diff. So if you do want to swap over to an open diff, it looks like there's parts. You just got to be able to order them. Probably find them on AliExpress. Maybe MakerFire has them. Not totally sure. There you go again. See, 2 different transmissions. So just interesting thing to note. Everything else is pretty much one option. So there's not like multiple different things other than the diff. And then, like I said, that transmission setup. But obviously the motors. Oh, and the ESCs. ESCs are different. There's obviously the brushed ESC and the brushless ESC there. All right, let's go ahead and get this guy weighed. So we'll go ahead and start with the brushed version. The battery is in there, so it's basically ready to go, ready to run. It looks like we're at 48.52, 336, 337 grams, 49.51, kind of on our left to right. That could just be how it's settling. Let's make sure we're centered on our scales here. Yeah, 48.52. So there's a little bit of weight bias for some reason, which is kind of odd because everything is pretty centered. The only thing that's kind of off to the side is a switch here. Everything else is centered. So that's interesting that there's a little bit of weight bias to one side. Not much. I'm not too worried about that. But the front to rear, again, that's 49.51. So not horrible. Ideally, you would have a 60-40 if you're really looking for crawling. But if you're looking for going fast, you know, having a 50-50 isn't horrible. I would still maybe go like 45 or 55-45. Still want a little bit of front weight bias, especially with something that's going to be racing up hills. But having the battery in the back is definitely going to cost you a little bit of that perfect weight distribution. Here's the brushless. 55 rear, 45 front. Interesting. Probably because of that big brushed motor. Then again, this was 336 for this guy. This guy's a little bit heavier at 352. 50-50 left to right. So that's good. Yeah. So there you have it. Just need a little bit of weight up front on these guys. Just a little bit. Maybe get a custom steering link here, a nice metal steering link that add a little weight. It'd be cool to have some brass knuckles. If somebody offered some brass knuckles for this guy, maybe a brass diff cover. Just that alone, diff cover, knuckles, and a little bit heavier and more stiff steering link. That'd probably bring you a lot closer to 55-45 distribution, especially on this guy here. All right, guys. What else we got? I think we'll do a little bit of running on the desk with the crawler track stuff and just kind of show you so it's nice up close and personal and we can talk about them. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just start with the brushed guy here. We're going to start in low gear, obviously. It's got that typical brushed feel where you've got to give it more throttle to kind of bump over stuff, and then when you hit that brake over, it just kind of jumps. But that's pretty typical. I'm going to try using just the trim here. We'll try to just trim it up and see if we can kind of show what I'm talking about. So you can see how the tire stops spinning. I have to give it more throttle just because it's up against resistance. That's typical of a brushed setup. The brushless with the FOC will continue to give it throttle, and it just tries to maintain the same RPM. So that's one of the benefits of brushless if you like that. Some people like the brushed, and they like that you have to kind of bump it up. But, you know, it just depends on your driving style, I guess. Most trucks have a pretty difficult time with that side of the frame bender NXT. This obstacle is pretty rough right there. There's like a ledge on the back side, on the driver's side or left side wheel, and it's hard to get up there. So I'm surprised it made it just there. It's pretty impressive. You can see though that brush kind of struggling, not struggling, but again, you have to be gentle on the throttle. We're going to try it in second gear here. One thing I've noticed about these transmitters, both on the brushed and the brushless, it feels like there's a tiny delay. So that doesn't help with the brushed situation where you've got to kind of bump it. and yeah, it just makes it a little bit more rough. The high speed is definitely high speed, you know, but we're able to crawl with it, so that's good that we're still able to get over some of the obstacles with the high speed. But I mean, it rips. It I'm barely throttling here. Again, the Framebender NXT is a pretty rough start obstacle, so we'll just go ahead and cheat it here and throw it out there. And again, I'm driving one-handed, so we're going to put it back in first gear. Let's try doing it in low. Honestly, the brush feels pretty good though. It feels pretty smooth. It's got plenty of wheel speed, plenty of low-end torque, especially in first gear, and it feels good. Just it's a typical brush. Drive error here. Again, drive one-handed, holding the camera in the other. All right, let's go ahead and move over to this brushless guy. You can see how super slow crawl this motor is. It's really good at the low end, super slow. You can see the motor inside there spinning. I'm just barely giving it some throttle, and it really just, it's really buttery smooth in the low end. Where it starts to feel like it's got issues is when it reaches a little bit of resistance. It starts to cog a little bit. And again, I think that's a huge part of it's going to be that 16-tooth pinion that's in there. They probably should have gone with like a 12-tooth or something. It would have definitely helped with the slow crawl. But again, these guys are marketed more as trail trucks and Ultra 4 trucks, although the four-wheel steer is really going to be probably more applicable to a crawler. But it's still pretty smooth. I mean, it feels good. It's not cogging for no reason. So you can see right there, you can hear it. It's just kind of ticking. A little bit of cogging there. Another thing, I think these tires, they're a little too stiff for this particular obstacle. Both trucks, you can tell they're just having trouble gripping. Driver error for sure right there. Yeah, that wasn't ideal. So the truck definitely handles well as far as the geometry of the truck and the platform. I think it just needs better tires, and you can see how it's pretty smooth right there. Man, I'm just really having trouble getting it up here. I think that little bit of extra front weight bias that the brushed has is really shining through in this situation, because I just could not get this guy to bump up this. Just needs a little bit more weight in the front. That extra little percentage, you know, getting almost to that 50-50 is going to help a lot. The fact that we're 5% more in the rear here is definitely hurting us. So trying to get some more weight in the front will help this guy quite a bit on the crawling for sure. We'll just go ahead and cheat it here. We'll show off a little bit of that granular low end, show how good the real low end is. Again, it's like 10% to 15% into throttle is where you start to see cogging. Before that, it's like super buttery smooth. It's almost like the FOC changeover. Even the FearTechs I've seen have some issues like that, where around 15 to 20%, you'll get kind of a weird cog that happens. So this kind of is reminding me of that, but it's still pretty buttery smooth most of the time. It's just every once in a while you'll hit a spot or hit enough resistance, and just kind of does its thing. I really love the rear steer functions and the mixing modes on this thing. It just kind of takes it to a different level of driving, and it's pretty fun. It's super easy to use, and I like that. And it seems to work pretty well. Again, just rear steer and four-wheel steer can really get you out of some interesting situations. It's pretty fun. Well, there you have it, everybody. These little things, pretty awesome, especially when you consider the price point. The fact that you get the options of a brushed or a brushless, I love that. The fact that you can get multiple color options and that they come with a sticker sheet. You know, the yellow one comes with the same sticker sheet as the black one, so if you want to really change things up, you can, which is pretty awesome. Four-wheel steer on an RTR, you know, the only people that have done that so far on one of these little guys has been Axial with their AX24, and it's got a similar kind of mixing mode, but not as convenient as this guy. This guy is pretty convenient. The mixing mode is really good, and I dig that. The only downsides to these, really the tires. I think the tires are probably the weakest point on the whole truck. The brushless, that little bit of cogging here or there. But again, it's only at certain points, and I think if you geared it down, you'd have no problem. And getting a little front weight bias on both of them would be super helpful. So I definitely think they're a cool truck for sure. I love the way they look. If you like the way they look, it's probably worth picking up. I don't know about aftermarket support yet from UDIRC as far as if there's going to be brass coming or anything like that. Maybe put down in the comments below what you'd like to see as an upgrade for something like this. Like I said, diff cover, brass knuckles, steering link. That's really about it. And then obviously we're going to change out our wheels and tires, stuff like that. I want to give a huge shout out to MakerFire for getting us out this really quick. Like I said, we got the brushless from MakerFire. The brushed we got directly from UDIRC. So awesome that you're able to pick it up from a retailer versus directly from the manufacturer or like on AliExpress and Banggood and stuff like that. It's nice to have an actual retailer to reach out to if you have any issues. Again, I'm loving the way these things look, and I think with a little bit of work, they could be really good performers. The four-wheel steer is just too much fun. I also want to give a huge shout out to these guys here. These are all of our channel members. They get to see all these videos early before anybody else and without ads. They also get priority replies to their comments. And as the channel grows, it becomes harder and harder to reply to all comments, but all channel members will always get replies. They also get access in our Discord to a specific channel for channel members. If you're into mini RC, which I assume you are, we have a Discord specifically for small scale RCs with a huge community, awesome community, people in there sharing pictures and builds and asking questions. And it's basically a chat community. So you can go in there and live chat through text. There's also voice channels and video channels if you ever wanted to go into there and talk to people. But yeah, tons of awesome stuff in there. And the channel members get to have a special channel in there for channel members only. And it's an easy way to access me as well. If they have any questions, I'm always in there to answer them. You can also help support the channel by checking out our swag. We do have some swag. You can find that below. And the best way really is just to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share. Shares are huge. If you know somebody that wants to see one of the videos we made or has a question that is answered in one of our videos, make sure you hit that share, send it over to them, share it in your groups, on your Reddits, in your other Discords, TikToks, Instagrams, anywhere. Share that. I know it's hard to share on Instagram and TikTok. That's rough. But we do have a TikTok and Instagram, though. So check us out on TikTok and Instagram if you want to see some of our shorts, some of our other content. And yeah, I think we've gone long enough in this thing. Why don't you put on the prowl in the comments below? Because the Snow Leopard is on the prowl. So on the prowl tells us you watched the whole video all the way to the end. Huge thanks to all you guys. Huge thanks to the channel members. Huge thanks to MakerFire and UDIRC. And yeah, again, thank you to you guys for watching. Even if you're not a subscriber, I appreciate your time. Time is the most valuable thing we have. And so spending your time with us is a huge compliment, and I really appreciate it. Also, just talking down in the comments below. I love the conversations that happen down in the comments below. So if you've got anything to say or anything to ask, put it down there. We love to see it, and we love to talk to you guys. So, like I said, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell. Get out there and build something awesome. Build a car, build a course, build a community, because that's what this hobby's about. And then smash it, crash it, and bash it. Well, did you see how quick this guy is? Hold on. Look at this. Before we leave, look at this little thing ripping around. How crazy is that? That just shows how much spunk these things have. Pretty wild. All right, guys, smash it, crash it, bash it. Just don't break the expensive parts. Peace.